Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Alabama and Talladega. Yes, Talladega Speedway. And tonight we are here for the first race of the chase. Yes, the first race of the chase part of the championship. And we have news already of one person out. Danny G, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for him, I guess you could say he's off at the Bathurst race camping away, so he won't be here for this, unfortunately. So that's him immediately out of the chase. So only two people are going to be knocked out tonight. Now, joining me tonight is, as ever, on cameras and doing the general work behind the scenes, Matt Hunter, and in commentary with me is Jonathan Hancock. Hello, how you going, Jono?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yes, so Talladega, it is a bit of a lottery sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. You're gonna have a big one here at some point in time. It's just when. So you're always looking to grab that caution and take advantage of it.
Yes, that can be key sometimes. You know, if we get a long stint of green, it can really catch people out, especially if they're off sequence. And if you don't take that caution to pit the car, if there's a few cautions in a row, you can get yourself in a bit of a different position and really make up some good places here. Now, track conditions, of course, here are pretty decent. Tyre wear is not an issue generally, but the big thing for people is going to be fuel.
Yeah, so running a stint is about 29 laps here. So we're looking for drivers to start pitting probably around the 25 lap range, so a bit before you run out. But obviously, if there's a caution, they'll make pit short. If there's a long green stint, they'll go as long as they can. Just depends on their strategy.
And of course, with the drafting effect as well, sometimes that can help with fuel mileage. But of course, the poor guy at the front is taking the brunt of that, the air basically, and using up a bit more fuel than the drivers behind him. So again, that can be a big part of this style of racing. And we've got to expect teams to be working together here tonight.
Yeah, that's always a big thing, is drafting, like you said. And I've personally used the draft, even though I've known on a quicker car, to the second last lap and then drove away during the last lap to win the race, but just to save fuel and not have to break the air for everyone else. So it's a disadvantage being out front, but it depends. If you've got quick enough, you can get away. And losing the draft here is going to be a big disadvantage. Once you lose the draft, you're pretty much going to be back of the pack.
Yes, and that can be a real big problem. And you're probably going to find, like, the big thing is going to be with some of the teams, of course. You've got teams like Illusion, Riley Curtis Design, but we've also got the Mitch Motorsport team, and they've only got 2 cars tonight. So while some other teams have got a few more cars in their lineup, it's going to make a big difference for those teams. And they're all going to be working together, obviously. But sometimes you do find odd partnerships forming at Talladega. But the bump drafting is always dangerous, because there's always the chance if you get a little bit too much speed off the corner, that you can just give somebody that little bit of a tap through turns 1, 2, 3 or 4 and just cause a little bit of damage.
Yeah, and also aero wash is a big thing coming out of the corners here. The corner can be a little blind because of the rise coming out of 2 and 4, so you just got to watch that if you get aero wash, if you're bump drafting too.
And of course, one of the other big problems is pitting if it's a green flag stint.
Yeah, so very short pit entry, and you're going flat out here at Talladega. There's no lifting unless you're obviously bump drafting, then you're in and out of the throttle, but still you're going as fast as you can, and entering that pit, you've got very short amount of time to slow down, and the pit lane limit is very slow, so you don't want to lock up and, you know, spin the car out, but you don't want to get caught on pit road for speed, and so it's much of a muchness.
Yeah, I think from memory it's about 80 something kilometers per hour in the pit lane, and that's sort of it. When you're slowing down from, you know, going up to speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, it is such a big difference, and just dropping down to that speed limit, and of course no pit limiters in these cars.
No, so that's another thing. If you're one of the last pit stalls on pit bay, then you got that long drive out, and you got to watch your speed all the way out of the pit lane. So that can be another big thing with these long pit roads, is watching your speed limit.
Yeah, and of course, drivers, they don't tend to like to go slow. It's a common thing for racing drivers. They want to go as fast as possible and try their best to get a good spot. And of course, getting on pole means you're going to be at the end of the pit lane, which is a bit of an advantage sometimes.
Yeah, it's a long drive there, but then you get the pit stop and you're straight out, and that can help jump a driver right at that line, because once you pass that line, if you're just ahead by a fraction, you get that place under yellow.
Yeah, so we've got a few drivers out at the moment, and just having a look through some of the times and things like that. It looks like so far Daniel Stevens has done a good job with a 51.985. So the only person with 51s at the moment, and it's tricky qualifying here, of course, because you don't have that draft.
Yeah, so I was mucking around here in the fixed setup A's just before we started the commentary here, and I was cutting 52 flats without any draft, so it's very much that draft helps a lot.
Yes, it's around about 3 to 4 seconds you gain in a draft, and as I say, that's a huge change in timings. So at the moment in qualifying, we've got Daniel Stevens up in first place with Ryan Jones in second, Matty Raymond, good job there in third place, Andrew Mogridge in fourth with Norman Clark fifth, Mitchell McLeod sixth, seventh is Robert Mason, eighth we've got Bradley Cheney, ninth is Mirko Dortnack, 10th Wayne Taylor, 11th Darren McKenzie, Stephen Williams down in 12th, Roger Clark 13th, Riley Curtis 14th, Edward Foster 15th, Michael Skurlock down there as 16th, 17th is Jason Martin. Not one of his best qualifying sessions. Odd to see Jason so far down the pack there. So he just might be.
It could be a strategy thing too. You don't know, to try to stay out of the early incident, if there is one, or incidents, if there is a bad couple of crashes, because everyone, is pack racing at the start and likes to get real close, and a lot of drivers think that the first couple of laps will win the race, unfortunately, and can sometimes cause a big wreck. So maybe it's just strategy on his behalf to try to stay out of that.
Yes, and a lot of the drivers that are in the chase are down at the back of the pack. So I think everybody's trying to keep out of trouble.
Yeah, well, you have a lot to risk if you're in the chase here. So there's a lot to lose. So, strategy is going to be a big thing here. I have started from pits before myself in some of the official races, because sometimes the drivers you get paired up with they have no driving skills, unfortunately.
Yes, and that can be the thing, is people aren't always used to racing on these super speedways, because they're something different. These restricted plate races, they're a very different beast to tame over a sort of shorter oval as well. It's a pure flat out all the way around the track when you're on a run by yourself, of course, but when you're in that pack of cars, when you've got drivers around you, that's when it can start being very different and really catch people out.
Yeah, if you're not a cool, calm and collected driver, you can get very nervous and cold, and you start bumping into someone else. A little bump causes someone to lose traction. Next minute, you're all gone like Skittles.
Yes, and we saw this in the race at Indianapolis a few weeks ago now, just on the front straight at Indianapolis, of course, where it is very narrow there, of course. Luckily with Talladega, there is a little bit more room generally. You don't have that sort of bottleneck effect, even though there are some spots on the track sort of on the banked curves sometimes, where if you do have that crash, it can be a little bit worse for wear.
Yeah.
So we will jump now to our chase video. So we'll just explain the chase, explain the details, and also go through some of the drivers. So we will be back with you shortly for the race start.
Welcome back, everyone. Now that was the chase video. So, would you like to run us through the chase through the chase drivers with me here, Carl?
Yes, so absolutely. Well, as I said before, some big news. We got Danny G, and he's already out of the chase, unfortunately, off enjoying himself at Bathurst, which I guess is not a terrible thing to do. But that means the drivers only have to beat 2 other drivers tonight. It's not a 3-man dropout. It's only 2 cars are going to drop out tonight because one's already gone. So I expect some drivers to be a bit cautious. So of course the first 3 we're going to look at is Jason Martin. Of course, second in the championship sort of overall. He's one of the big contenders, and he's going to have Josh Micklemore as well tonight, who is also in the chase, both teammates in Mitch Motorsport. And that could be a bonus to them because it's going to mean they're going to want to work together to get through this and actually get themselves in there. But it could also sort of hamper them because there's only 2 of them racing in there. Then we have the Illusion car of Michael Skurlock, and there are quite a few Illusion boys out there. You've also got Mirko Dortnack and Stephen Williams. Sorry, my brain went blank there for a moment. In the Illusion cars, and they're really going to be working hard tonight and working together, and that's something Illusion does very well. And it's going to be pretty tricky to actually sort of beat them, I think. Mirko Dortnack's been very strong. He's sort of been pretty solid through the season, but you've got people like Purnell and Skurlock in there who are going to be very, very strong tonight and could really make a challenge, especially with all the Illusion cars. Then we have Edward Foster, of course, in the Riley Curtis design car, as well as Riley Curtis and Dave Douglas. So again, 3 guys in that team. They've also got Matty Raymond as well with them tonight for that team. So 4 cars in that group as well. So quite a strong team there to work together and try and push forwards. And from qualifying, we saw a lot of people dropping back. So I think the aim of the game is just going to be survival to the end and then trying to push at the end to get themselves up there. We also have Matty Clerk and Norman Clark, so Middle Finger Racing, and they've come out in droves tonight as well, so quite a few Middle Finger Racing guys out there tonight, again trying to help their drivers get through to the next stage. And on a track like this is exactly what you need, is you need those people to help get you through. So it's going to be very tricky for a few of those drivers tonight.
Yeah, it will be, but one that doesn't have to worry tonight is Matt Danson. He's straight through to the final as we get lined up here for the race. You want to tell everyone how that works, Carl?
Yes, so Matt Danson, of course, he was the championship leader, and that means that he's got the golden ticket, basically. So you imagine Charlie in the chocolate factory, he is Charlie, and he is straight through to the final race of the season, and that's going to help enormously for him tonight. And he can be a bit of a wild card tonight because he doesn't have to worry. He's not racing for anything, he's just racing for fun. And of course, he could put a challenge up to some of the other drivers, so that could be a big factor in there as well. So we're lining up now on the track for everything, so everybody's going to be getting into their positions momentarily. That all updates itself. Sorry, I'm getting...
Yeah, Danson could be like Chase Elliott in real life. In the last 2 weeks, he won that race at the Roval and had a really good run, and last week his car blew up and he didn't even finish the race. So Danson doesn't even have to worry about finishing this race if he doesn't want to.
No, and that's it. He's through no matter what. So away we go, and for some reason my system's not updating everything for positioning, so that's always fun. Gotta love computers sometimes. There we go. So in the race we have Daniel Stevens and Ryan Jones on the first row, Maddie Raymond and Andrew Modbridge on the second, Norman Clark and Robert Mason on the third. Bradley Cheney, Mirko Dortnack on the 4th row. 5th row, Wayne Taylor and Darren McKenzie. 6th row, Stephen Williams and Roger Clark. 7th row, Riley Curtis and Edward Foster. 7th, Michael Skurlock with Jason Martin. 8th row, we have Josh Micklemore with Manny Clerk. 9th row, Chris Purnell and Dave Douglas. And at the very back, we have Matt Danson himself. So he'll actually be wanting to race through the pack and try and prove something tonight, I imagine, for Mr. Danson.
So who's your pick for the night?
Well, it's a tricky one in all honesty, but I think he's been on form lately, and even though he's starting last, I've got to say Matt Danson.
Yeah, that could be a good one. I think Matt Danson, if anyone's going to do it from the back, he will. I'm going to back one of our own with Edward Foster there, so I'll go with the Edward Foster for the night, just to, he's been doing very well out there lately, so why not? Anyone could win it out here tonight with a big wreck.
Yes, it is anyone's race really. It's a bit of a lottery tonight, and as the pace car will be peeling away shortly, we'll soon be going green for the start, so shave and bake baby, and away we go for yeah, just waiting on that start line now. And away we go, green we go. So everybody is off, and I imagine people are going to be pretty well behaved here. So Daniel Stevens leads them across the line, and Edward Foster drops down to the bottom line. So we'll see how everybody goes here. Of course, you might see some free wide racing here. You've got the top, middle, and bottom line, and those can, of course, make some interesting races.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of testing around here, like I said earlier, and you can go easily 3, and if really needed, maybe 4 wide. But I think we're going to see a lot of two wide action here, and possibly a third line form up if there's enough drivers pushing that third line.
Yes, and it's all about positioning on this kind of race. Just at the back, I think Mirko Dortnack, we can just see him falling back. He's actually just gone up to that top line, and he's just falling back a bit, and I imagine he's going to drop back to his teammates. They're going to try and get their own little line set up, and as you can see, the cars going down the straight here, they're all wobbling left to right, and that's partially to do with the wash effect on the corners.
Yeah, that's a big thing to watch for when you're in the draft and you're getting pushed, is the wobble effect, and getting pushed too hard can have consequences. You can bump the guy in front and you can cause the accident.
And it's so easy to do. It's this kind of racing, it looks amazing sometimes, but it doesn't look overly difficult sometimes, especially when they're running in 2 lines, pretty much in a line astern. But you're constantly moving the wheel, you're constantly having to correct the car, and it is a really hard thing to do. And I just want to mention with Matt Danson, he has climbed the field a fair bit. He's currently in 10th place, excuse that, 8th place now. So Matt Danson is absolutely leaping up the field, and he wants to get to the front of this train, I think, pretty early on.
Yeah, I noticed that just as you were going to mention it there, Carl, so he's done very well to come way to the back, way up in the battle pack, and as you can see, there's some packs starting to form here, and some drivers starting to fall off. We nearly got 2 or 3 packs starting to happen individually now.
The guys are starting to look at 3 wide as Danson's just trying to go around the outside of Mackenzie there. The fantastic Scooby-Doo leverage on Mackenzie, and he's just up on that high line at the moment. And I think it's a thing for Danson of wanting to win this race, just to sort of prove his top dog status. Lower line just losing a little bit of speed there, and that's just given the high line a little bit more speed. And Danson's just shot up there, and he's just currently sitting in that third line, and he's got just trying to pick the car.
He's now got a car helping him, so you do need a car or 2 to help you push a new line most of the time, so or else it's very, very difficult to run a line by yourself.
So Roger Clark there, just with Matt Danson, just choosing to run with Danson a little bit and stare at Danson's behind for a bit of time. But not a bad choice of car to run with Matt Danson, because you know he's going to get up there in speed, and you know he's going to be pretty high up. Matty Raymond's doing pretty well. He's currently still sitting in sort of second place, just sitting right behind Danny Stevens in the Middle Finger Racing car. And you've got on the outside Ryan Jones and Andrew Moggridge, of course. And Moggridge has had a couple of good races this season. He's still relatively new to the Cup, but he's been having some solid results and some solid races. And I imagine he will be really trying to get a good position tonight.
Yeah.
So as we cross the line, we've got three wide racing on the oval at the moment, with Ryan Jones taking the lead, just pushing himself ahead with Moggridge behind him. But Moggridge is struggling, and Moggridge has gone round, and here we go, the crash has happened, and Andrew Moggridge has gone into a big group of cars. Bradley Cheney involved in that, a fair few cars taken out in that incident. Looks like a fair few cars have really been caught up in that incident. Chris Purnell, some serious damage to Purnell's car. Norman Clark has had his whole front taken off, so a huge disaster for Norman Clark, and his son Roger Clark as well, also caught up in that incident. A huge moment, and that's the thing that unfortunately can happen here at Talladega.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. There's always going to be the big one at Talladega, but I think it's way too early for drivers to look at pitting yet.
Yes, and that looks to be a sort of Darren McKenzie just getting into Moggridge there as he lost a little bit of speed as they were going through the first corner complex. And it looked like Moggridge just dropped back a little bit faster than expected, and that caused a huge pile-up for the cars behind him, and quite a few cars involved in that. One car that looks to have got through pretty much unscathed is actually Foster. So a couple of the contenders tonight, looks like they managed to just avoid that incident. So some great driving there for avoiding that crash. Foster was so close to that incident, as well as Stephen Williams and Dave Douglas as well. Dave Douglas had a real narrow escape as Moggridge went down off the oval, almost catching him out. So yeah, the big one has happened, unfortunately, and taken a fair few cars out of contention.
It's a shame, and I was wrong. There's a lot of cars actually coming down pit lane, so my apologies.
Yes, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? This early in the race, you know, not too many laps done. We're on lap 7. There's not going to be a huge advantage for tyres, but topping up that fuel tank could be a good idea here. This has meant that Daniel Stevens has now got track position, so he's out in the lead now. So once everybody comes out of the pit lane, Daniel Stevens is going to be in the lead, and we'll see how much of a difference there is with tyres for that, because of course not a huge amount of, you don't get much drop in performance on tyres here. There's not that sort of big overcut effect. Fresher tyres.
Sorry, I don't believe there will be any advantage pitting this early tyre wise myself. There'll be obviously the 8 extra laps of fuel, which give them a chance to run longer for another possible safety car, but you're running that chance, so, you know, running longer again and having that more fuel on board, which weighs the car down also, which makes it slightly slower too.
Yes, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's that balancing act, and that's one of the trickier things in a racing car, is getting the balance right of weight to fuel to run, you know, and these drivers have got to be thinking about that all the time as they're racing. One of the big things for sim racers is the fact that, you know, there are a few people that have teams behind them, and people that do help them out, spotters and the like, but generally you're on your own out on the track, and you've got to work out that strategy in advance or as you're going on the fly, and you've got to think about all those numbers and all those different things sometimes as you're racing on a track, you know. And it is a big ask sometimes, and it shows the talent of some of these guys.
Yeah, I'm in a lucky position that I have a great team behind me that do my setups and spot for me and pit crew and pit chief and all that for me. So I get told how much fuel to put in, and on the races I don't have them. I have a dash from HRS that tell me when I need fuel and how much fuel I need to get to the end of the race and tyres, etc. So you have that type of technology now too.
To make it a little bit easier for you, I mean, there's the crew chief app as well, and got Matt Danson coming in for just a little bit more fuel now. A couple of drivers are doing this, so a few drivers are just pulling that little trick of just getting a little extra lap of fuel in there. Not much difference there, but it could be beneficial to them.
A thing I noticed that not many iRacers do in iRacing, but in real life you'll notice it, is NASCAR drivers actually switch their motor off under safety car sometimes in real racing, and I tend to try to do that sometimes to save a bit of fuel, because the smallest amount of fuel does count in the long run, but this early on it's a gamble.
It's a gamble, and in real life racing it's a gamble when you're switching your car off under safety car conditions, because they usually fire back up, but racing cars are notoriously tricky sometimes. Endurance racing, it's done a lot as well. Le Mans mainly, for my main sort of knowledge on that one. Down Mulsanne, you'll get a lot of drivers switching the engine off as they're going through a safety car period, and just gaining a little bit of extra fuel through that period. But what usually happens is around about 18, 19 hours into a race, they'll switch the engine off, just cruise along a little bit, and then all of a sudden the car won't fire back up. So there is always those little risks, but every little bit helps.
Yes, it's a big risk sometimes. I know real racing, but the lights are out on the safety car.
Okay, so we've just heard that possibly Muggeridge, his engine went out, and that's why we had that incident. We'll try and...
Well, I was going to bring that up earlier with you when we were talking about drafting. That's another thing. When you see the drivers moving around behind each other and swapping positions, the main reason for that is if you're stuck behind a car for too long, it'll build up a lot of heat in the motor, and you can run the risk of blowing a motor.
Yeah, sorry, just going back and just having a little bit of a listen and a watch to that. So he's going along, and then all of a sudden his rev has just dropped out, and that's it. But we're back to green flag racing now. So Daniel Stevens is going to be... Sorry, we're still... with that, sorry. Yeah, back to green flag racing, and Daniel Stevens is going to be in the lead now, with Ryan Jones next to him. But it looks like Jones has fallen back a little bit, and that's just allowed Matty Raymond to climb up there a little bit.
Yeah, we're single file at the moment, so in with the first few cars, so hopefully we see that outside line build up a bit more, able to push up.
Yes, I imagine some people are going to want to try and get that outside line working for them. Just this early in a race, though, for an engine to go, that's a little bit unusual, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. It's normally when you're excessively sitting behind in the draft, so it can happen, but that's the risk of sitting in the draft and pushing your teammate for too long. But again, that's how simulated iRacing is.
Yes, of course, Ryan James and Muggeridge were working very close together. I just did go back and have a listen to that, and yeah, he dropped about 1,000 RPM just as he was sitting behind Jones going through that corner. So yeah, possibly a loss of power in that engine, and he's just dropped right back. Speaking of dropping back, though, Matt Danson is He's dropped back a fair few positions, but that's mainly to do with his little bit of extra pit strategy. So just getting a little bit of extra fuel on board and just giving himself a little bit of an advantage. And around him, you can see the Riley Curtis design car and Illusion Motorsport cars of Chris Purnell and Dave Douglas. Both of them quite heavily damaged on the front aero, and that's not going to be helping them tonight. So this could be a real challenge for some of the drivers for the chase.
Yeah, it will be for some of the drivers, and luckily I don't believe any of our chase drivers were taken out in that crash, were they?
Well, Norman Clark and Skurlock did receive quite a lot of damage, so they both really lost out on that one. Norman Clark is the biggest one to suffer. He's missing the whole front end of his car, which is going to help out for keeping the engine cool, but it's not going to be very good for aerodynamics.
No, it's not at all. I believe he's dropped way off the back of the pack anyway, now due to that damage.
Yes, he's lapping around about 2 seconds a lap slower than everybody else, and of course not being in the draft is going to do that, but he just doesn't have the comfort of that car to keep up in a position where he can get into the draft.
Being in that draft is very important. So at the moment we got
this race. We're only on lap 13 100, so you know it is a long way to go, and there's no point in, if you crash out on the first few laps, you're not going to gain anything. We're back to single file now, and I think everybody
about to read off the top 5 for you, Carl. So you want to run through the top 5 at the moment before you jump back in there? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. For some reason, the Discord decided to throw me out of the broadcast booth, which is always fun. So top 5 as it stands is Daniel Stevens in first, which is he's done well so far. Qualified first, sitting in first. He's doing a good job tonight. Maddie Raymond there in second. Darren McKenzie third. 4th place we have Wayne Taylor, and then 5th place is Ryan Jones. But coming up fast is a charging Jason Martin. He's got their outside line, and he's got his teammate behind him, Josh Micklemore, and it looks like those two are going to try and push to the front.
Yeah, that outside line starting to form up, and Danson is trying to make the most of that out there too.
Yeah, so it's sort of 3 wide at some points on this track at the moment, and these guys are pushing relatively hard early on in the race. Talladega is one of those races you want to win. It's almost like Daytona, you know, it's that race to get under you, just in there, you know, saying you won Talladega is a big thing.
Yeah, well, it's push or get left behind type of track, this in Daytona. Any restrictor plates are either part of the pack or you're 10 mile down the road.
Yeah, and I'll bring it up on the restrictor plate. Could you just basically just explain the restrictor plate for us?
So there's a plate within inside of the motor that restricts the power, so then all the cars are closer in the pack together to make closer pack racing. That's what the restrictor plate is supposed to do.
Yeah, and it just lowers a bit of the horsepower as well, doesn't it? They run a bit less horsepower.
Yeah, well, that's to bring them all closer together. They restrict the motor, which is why it's a restrictor plate. Oh yeah, and with the new Zero package, it also brings them closer together, so all the aero and everything.
And we've got a fantastic battle now at the front, because we've got Danson flying up there on the high outside line. You've got Jason Martin with Josh Micklemore behind him, running right up to the wall. And these guys are starting to want to get into first place, I think.
Yeah, we're starting to nearly see a third line form up here, a few back.
And Danson's working well with Ryan Jones at the moment. Jones just behind Danson now. not sitting as close as teammate did earlier on in the race. Maybe that was part of the issue, because those guys were sitting nose to tail for some of that period, and maybe everybody's just a little bit wary now of the engines, just not wanting to get too close. But they're really working hard to get these cars up there, and Danson is looking very racy tonight. He is, I think he wants to try and take the chase with style by getting a couple of wins under as well.
Well, wouldn't that be any driver's dream when you're as good as Matt Danson? Just whitewash it and don't give anyone else a chance to win any of the races in the chase.
Well, that is it. It's you know, it's a thing of when you're driving, when you're racing, you want to beat everybody else. It's the mentality of a racing driver. You don't want to be second, you want to be first. And these guys are really pushing hard to get that. We've got one of the illusion cars. I think that is. So I'm just looking through my drivers now. Chris Purnell just coming up, even with a bit of damage to the front end of his car. He's doing pretty well up there, running in 6th place. So he's holding his position there pretty well. Down at the back, we've got the Riley Curtis design team cars sort of running relatively close together. Roger Clark as well, just holding in there. Dave Douglas, Riley Curtis are both sort of holding station at the moment, with a couple of illusion cars behind them, just sitting towards the back of the pack, just sort of watching to see what happens, and just giving them the ability to react if anything does go wrong.
Yeah, going back to talking about how you're saying in the eyes of a driver, being a driver, at the end of the day, no one remembers who finished second, third, or any other place except first. So you always want to be that number one driver.
Yep, it's the history books always remember that driver that finished first, and it's a special feeling as well when you get that victory. It does make you feel pretty good if you get a win. It's why we do it.
Yeah, especially in a large series like ANZCAR here. You know, you get a good pack of guys that race really hard, and if you come out on top, that just proves how good a driver you are, and that can also boost your confidence further on down the track.
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the things we have here with the Cup and ANZCAR with Thunder and the Truck Series as well, is there are some extremely talented drivers in these series, and when you're racing against them, it really makes you sharpen your game. It makes you have to up your game and actually have to really put the effort in. And you know, these guys like Dave Douglas is a good example. He usually finishes in the top 10, and it's not because he's slow, it's just he's very consistent, but he's just working his way up there. Everybody's so good, everybody's pretty much on that same level, and although Danson and Martin do tend to take a lot of the wins, they just have that little edge over everyone else in some of the circuits. But it's only a couple of tenths, it's not much you're speaking about, and that sort of, you know, couple of tenths a lap makes a huge difference over a race. But it is so close, the racing here, and it's always so much fun. That's the thing we love here, we love seeing, is this really close pack racing.
Yeah, no, as a driver, that gives you the blood rush, you know, and the excitement and adrenaline of being in a close pack when you're, you know, a hair fraction away from causing an accident. You know, if you make a mistake, you wreck everyone else's race. So it's a very fine line as a driver, excitement to concentration. There's a lot of emotions as a driver you're feeling when you're battling in a pack compared to on a road where it's, you know, single line racing.
Yes, it really does heighten your senses. The old adrenaline starts to pump, and the endorphins kick in as well when you get those good results. And you know, when you're racing in these packs as well, it's just the concentration factor as well. And that's something that we do talk about a bit, is, you know, with the force feedback steering wheels, with positioning and things like that, you do feel a lot of the car's movement, and there is just, it's almost a sensory overload. You've got the noise, you've got the steering inputs and the vision, as Matt Danson's just getting a bit of a push now by Ryan Jones, and he's just getting up past Daniel Stevens, and is he going to try and cut down in front of him here? He's sitting in the midline at the moment, which is just allowing Stevens to just crawl back into the lead there. Working very well with Matty Raymond at the moment. Daniel Stevens and Matty Raymond are really working well together, it seems.
Yeah, and another thing that we haven't talked about that you also got to remember is there is side draft on these cars. So that's where, as a driver, if there's two cars running side by side and you come really close together and then pull out, you get a slight draft, and you can also upset the other person's car, which causes them to, have to correct, and then they lose their ground.
Yeah, of course, dirty air and sort of aero wash is a big factor as well, because these cars punch a huge gap through the air. When you sort of, if you get a chance, have a look at some of the videos sort of talking about sort of oval racing, NASCAR, things like that, and just showing you how the air goes around them. It's just this big bubble that goes around them, and there is that little bit of a side section which is just sort of the air's no longer on you because the car in front's punching that hole in the air. But when you get into the air that's being distorted and is turbulent, that's when you get the dirty air, and that can really catch you out. It can make the car do something you're not expecting it to do. It can make the car extra twitchy. It can really throw you out as a driver, as Norman Clark just gets lapped by the field now. Just keeping up in the high line. He's just pretty much going to stick it out there and try and hope that a couple of the other drivers in the chase maybe go out in this session. I think that's his plan for tonight. Yeah,
that's the thing. As a driver, you have to choose when it's too far. Do you call it, or do you stay out there and hope that your opponents crash out, or maybe, I don't know if you guys have over half distance, you get some points or something. I don't know how your point system. So some series. Okay, so yeah, in some series I know that, but not on this one because it's a chase. But the bottom two, but in some series during a race, if you get X amount of race distance, let's say 50 or 75%, and you have to park up, that still counts towards points.
Yeah, it's sort of getting that percentage of finish to just get those little bit of points. But Norman being in the chase is, he's just going to be hoping that two other drivers from the chase two other drivers do drop out, because currently it's looking good for everybody else. Because they're really only fighting at one spot now, because Norman Clark is out of the race for the chase. Of course, there is the point for leading the lap here and everything like that. So leading a lap will net you a point, but the points don't matter now, because it's all about the chase really. And currently it looks like it's going to be, if it finished as it did, it would be Skurlock and Norman Clark out of the chase currently. So it's sort of Skurlock's in the danger zone, but he's sort of sitting at the back with Mirko Dortnak and Stephen Williams as well. With Dave Douglas and Riley Curtis, all of the chase drivers are sort of holding at the back of the pack at the moment and just trying to keep their noses clean now, I guess, because they know that it's just one position that can mean the difference of taking out the championship or going out in the first round.
Yeah, and I'm just watching here. Start watching in the next 10 laps for drivers to start coming in the fuel, even though they took that fuel on earlier. We're starting to come into the pit window even with that extra fuel on board here shortly.
Well, I imagine Dan Stevens is probably going to come in the next lap or two, because he's done 27 laps now, and he's been in the lead of this race pretty much the whole race. So he's not had any of that nice buffer of a car in front of him to sort of break the air from him and give him a little bit of a breather and let his fuel last a bit longer. Of course, the caution period would have helped out, so he might be able to stretch it out to around about lap 30 maybe 31 pushing it, but he is going to be coming in soon, so he's going to be the first of the stoppers, and then it will be a couple of laps later for the rest of them, and they'll of course be hoping that something happens to bring out the yellow flag for caution.
Yeah, but it's starting to look like everyone's starting to spread out, and Danson is now coming up on the outside here.
Yes, Danson and Jones are working pretty well together at the moment, and that's just pushing Danson up there, and he's gonna try again to get in front of Daniel Stevens, as they're so close to each other. Just a cigarette paper between Danny Stevens and Matt Danson there as they go through. But you can see the push that's happening here, and just getting Danson ahead right now. He's almost in front, but he's just losing out just on this trioval section. Just losing out a little bit, but still there. And he's going to want to try and cut down eventually. But also on a bit of a lunge is Jason Martin and Josh Micklemore, of course. Again, two drivers in the chase, and they've just come flying up behind Jones and Danson, trying to hold on to them. And so this is where the pack could change out. So the big thing is going to be for Matty Raymond as well. As soon as Danny Stevens comes in for that pit stop, he's going to be effectively the leader on that lower line. And he's going to have to just start buffering in as Daniel Stevens comes in for a pit stop with two other drivers from Middle Finger Racing. So it looks like all three drivers, and Daniel Stevens makes a bit of a pig's ear of coming into the pits. I'm not sure if he got a speeding penalty for that, but he went off completely, went into the grass. So big moment for Daniel Stevens. Wayne Taylor and Matthew Clowett are in the pits as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring up just there before about watching the drivers coming to pits, because this is their first stop under full speed.
So yeah, we'll try and just bring that back as Matt Danson slots down in front of Matty Raymond, now in the lead of the race. But yeah, just an awful pit stop there for the former race leader Daniel Stevens. He just lost it coming into pit road, and just went into the grass. He didn't go fully around, thankfully, but it's going to cost him some time.
And I think he overshot his pit box and had to reverse back, and then spun the tyres coming out too.
Just everything that can go wrong did go wrong there, so that's not going to help his position. But I don't think that's going to worry him too much, because he just wanted to get into a formation with the other two drivers of MFR. So those guys are now in a position where they can actually start running together in the pack. Matty Raymond's now taking the effective lead of the race. A nice little slot for him. He just managed to push past Danson and just get into the front of this race. But now you've got those MFR guys running it in a pack in clean air, the sort of cleaner air, just running together. And they're just going to start trying to get their own little race going, see if they can jump a few people in the actual green flag pit stops to come as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how people go here. So pretty much everybody is on their 25th lap of fuel, other than Matt Danson and Chris Purnell, who are... Sorry, Matt Danson, Chris Purnell and Skurlock.
And we're seeing all the drivers start to single file up, and that's also a thing that tends to happen before drivers are going into pit stop, like when we know that there's pit window to try and, make the drivers behind us think that we're going into pits. Sometimes we'll swerve down below the yellow line, then come back quick.
Yeah, the psychological game on it, in Formula One is often the case with Mercedes, where their pit crew will wander off into the pit lane and just put four tyres out on the tarmac, and then wander back in for a cup of coffee, making people think they're going to stop. Of course, you don't have that in iRacing, but you do get people just swerving under that yellow line, trying to make them think that they're going to pit before they do. And of course, if you pit now on your own and you're the only person pitting, you're going to come out in that clean air, but you're going to lose the draft. So you can start losing a bit of time. It's not like some races where you gain time because you're on those fresher tyres. You're in a heavier car, and because tyre degradation isn't the biggest thing here, you can lose a little bit of speed, a little bit of position when you come out in that clean air. So you want to try and pit with a few other people if you can.
Yeah, I don't think tyre degradation is anything to worry about around here, so it's more trying to pit with others, so you got that draft again.
Yeah, and somebody that has lost the draft is Danny Stevens. He's all the trouble that he had is he's lost his teammates, and he's pretty much out there on his own. So a real disaster for Daniel Stevens, having a great race up to that point. putting it on pole and leading the front of the field. But just a mistake coming into pit lane, which is so easy to do, has cost him some serious positions. But of course, there's still a long way to go. We're only on lap 35.
Yes, it's a long race, so there's always time to make up those spots. But when he first had all the drivers and came out last, but again, he was the only driver that did not pit under yellow, so he would have had longer fuel time anyway.
Yes, so yeah, we'll see how this goes, and they're really they're running at a good pace at the moment. To give you an idea of just the slight difference between tyres, I guess, the guys that just pitted, so Cluett and Wayne Taylor, are just a couple of tenths faster. It's nothing in there. They're doing 49.9s at the moment to the leader's 50.0. So, there's nothing in there. As a few more people come into the pit lane, I think we had...
There's a big lock-up coming in the pit lane there, I saw.
Josh Micklemore locking up quite bad going into the pits there. So we'll try and see exactly what happened for Josh Micklemore. Sorry, it wasn't Micklemore. I think it was Roger Clark, actually, who had the big lockup going into the pits. I'm just going back to have a little bit of a look at that one. But yeah, people are going to start diving into the pit boxes now. So yeah, Roger Clark having a huge lockup there, just going into the pit lane. As Darren McKenzie comes into the pits now, Matty Raymond's just sitting out there a bit longer, and obviously just sitting in second place for so long. He's just got that little bit of extra fuel left in the car, probably, just to get him over a little bit further, but I expect him in on this lap.
Yeah, and then you have a little bit of a gap again until Danson comes in, possibly.
Yeah, I will imagine that Danson and Purnell will probably stay out at least 1 or 2 laps longer than these other guys, just because they sort of have that little bit of extra fuel. But there's also the worry of losing the pack.
Yeah, and even though there's a very slight tyre advantage as Danson and a lot of the drivers are coming in now.
Yeah, so everybody's coming in, and Purnell, I think, big spin for Purnell coming into pit lane. He tried to come in very late there, has spun the car completely round, has got it back going again, and looks like we are under green still, so we've not got a caution, thankfully. But Purnell, huge mistake coming into the pits for him. He just came in a bit too late, I think, and with Matty Raymond sitting in his position where he was, it just caused Purnell to be on the outside there and just lock up and spin around. So disaster for him. That's really going to affect his race, as Matty Raymond has a relatively good stop, gets out in front of everybody, with Danson behind him, Jones behind him. So we've had those sort of the first sort of pit stoppers, and Stephen Williams is coming in now as well. So the field's going to be mixed up a little bit for a little bit of time as we go through the rigmarole of the actual pit stops and people getting back to the race pace and things like that. A little bit of a gap here in between the cars, but that was a big problem for Purnell coming into the pits. So that's something he doesn't want to have happening, because of course he's in that race for that chase as well. So he he's going to want to try and finish he's got to finish ahead of Norman Clark, of course, but he's currently sitting back in 17th position and in last place, so not the best place for him to be.
Yeah, Purnell will be spewing about that mistake, and as a driver that can be, drop your confidence and get you in a bad mental position if you're, not trained to recollect after things like that.
It absolutely can, but some guys making some pace now is Josh Micklemore and Jason Martin. They are absolutely flying at the moment on that outside line, pushing their way past the leaders and getting into first place. Matt Danson thinks, I'm going to have a bit of this, gets up behind Josh Micklemore and Jason Martin, trying to get into their pack, but the the two Mitch Motorsport cars have dropped down, and that has meant Danson sort of just dropped out of that pack, now leading the middle row just ahead of Jones and Mackenzie, with Matty Raymond in sort of third place effectively in this bottom row. And we've sort of got the sort of three packs formed now as those pit stops have happened. We've got sort of Edward Foster leading the next pack from 7th down, but the leaders are really going for it at the moment.
And that, as you saw, leaving the driver out to dry with the Danson there, that can be a hard thing as a driver. Do you commit to going to the outside? Because you can get left out to dry. And then as you saw how bad losing that draft can be, it pushes you back a long way.
Yeah, he's fallen all the way back to 6th place, back behind Darren Mackenzie now, so he's lost quite a few positions from basically fighting for the lead to dropping back. And this is, of course, is what can happen on these draft tracks, is you can go from hero to zero pretty quickly. Of course, the big thing in this style of racing is that last lap sort of pass as well, and that's what people will be starting to think later on in the race as well, trying to position themselves in a place where they can actually get a good run for the start finish line, to try and get those good positions for themselves.
Yeah, I've won many races sitting in second up until 1 or 2 laps to go and then pulling out to take the lead, because in a high draft track like this, it can be the way to go.
Yes, and it brings some very exciting finishes when that happens. Matty Raymond and Jones have just dropped into a little formation on the outside now and are just pushing their way up to the front now. Matty Raymond has been pretty fast all night, along with Ryan Jones, it has to be said. Really good showing from Matty Raymond now with the Riley Curtis design team. So good showing for him in his newish team. He's only joined relatively recently. But it looks like the Mitch Motorsport boys have it set on the bottom row at the moment, and this is what Josh Mickelmore and Jason Martin are going to want to see at the end of the race, of course. These two are going to want to be up there for it, just to show that Matt Danson isn't going to walk away with this championship. He's going to have to fight, because these guys have been fighting all season with him. Josh Mickelmore, of course, had a fantastic start to the year and then dropped off a little bit through the mid-season. Jason Martin's been pretty much consistent through the year. But then Matt Danson, of course, has had quite a few wins in the year and sort of used those drop rounds to his advantage. So these guys are going to want to try and sort of prove who's sort of top dog tonight, just to get that confidence boost as we go into the next set of races.
Confidence is a big thing when you're a driver.
It makes a huge difference, and you know, it's one of those things that people sometimes dismiss of, you know, confidence with drivers. You get it a lot with drivers that haven't won a race, and they tend to struggle a bit towards those last few laps. You know, it starts going through your head that, you know, oh, am I going to win this? Is this going to be the one? And sometimes you see them making mistakes. But once you've got that monkey off your back, once you've got that first win, that's when you start seeing drivers really starting to shine. They get that confidence boost, and they no longer have that sort of niggling question in the back of their mind where they sort of have to think about it. They get that confidence and they can really drive away with it.
Yeah, you get really, really, really excited on that first possible win, and then you can end up wrecking it or make a silly mistake that costs you that win.
Yes, and it's a split-second thing, and the more experience you have, the easier it becomes, obviously, but even the most experienced guys can have problems sometimes. But of course, Talladega, as we said, is a bit of a lottery on this track. It's one of those tracks that they weren't too keen to see it as the first race in the chase, because obviously it is one of those races where, as we saw with Paul Mogridge and his engine failure, you know, it's so easy to have a big accident here and wipe out half the field, and your race could be ruined on lap 1 or 2, and you could be out of the contention so quickly here. But at the same time, it can bring some people up that we wouldn't normally think of as contenders, and that can sometimes be a big thing.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting format, but we have seen it in real life in the NASCAR bring out some interesting results in past years.
Yeah, it has. It's changed things up, you know. Like there was a long period, you know, with people like Tony Stewart and stuff, where it was just domination really, and then the chases sort of come in, and it has spiced things up quite a lot. It's a very interesting format.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Johnson had 7 titles to his name, and he was going for his 8th this year, but due to the chase format, he unfortunately didn't make the chase, so he cannot get his 8th title this year.
Yeah, just means he's got to race another year.
Pretty much.
One of the fun things I think about NASCAR as well is, you know, it's one of the series where, you know, you get a lot of the guys in it are fit. You know, they're not the old school NASCAR drivers of, you know, the Dick Trickles driving around smoking a cigarette in a race, but you can get slightly older drivers. It's not sort of not youth isn't an advantage in NASCAR and stock car generally, because one of the things about, you know, there is a lot going through your body, of course, on these tracks. There's a lot of G's, there's a lot of pushing and tolerance and stuff like that, but because they're a bit of a bigger car, you know, a slightly larger gentleman, shall we say, you know, it makes it a bit easier for them to race and actually be competitive. And it's one of those things I do really enjoy it, and it's just nice to see over things like open wheelers where, you know, a young fit guy that only weighs, you know, 50 kilograms is going to be faster than somebody that's been doing it for years just because they're much lighter. You know, it's nice to see that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can have someone like Jimmy Johnson that has won 7 championships, and then you have someone like Chase Elliott that's been doing very, very well, and he's a young driver, one of my personal favourites. And now you got someone like Hayley Deegan, that's a female that's coming up through the ranks, and she's looking very promising to become a very good driver in the future.
Yeah, that's it. The young talent do come up there, and they get their way up there. They learn, and you see them getting that experience, and you generally find, you know, it's very rare that you get a rookie jump into it and be fast. You know, generally you'll get a rookie that's quite fast through a race, but for championships and titles, it's a little bit harder for a rookie to get it because there's a lot of experience to have on these races.
Yeah, age does give you the advantage of experience, but also a lot of the drivers unfortunately get the truck series straight into a cup car, and that can cut out that space where you need to drive an Xfinity car or have a few more years on a truck before jumping into Xfinity, and that can really cut down on the track knowledge, car knowledge, and just general knowledge of racing and racecraft. So that's a big thing for young drivers, you know, take the time to come up and drive every class and learn that and be good in that class too.
It's an unfortunate thing with a lot of motorsport. When you look at it, if you look at, you know, the pinnacle, I use air quotations for that, of motorsport, Formula One, for example, you get people like Max Verstappen who jump in it and are just ridiculously fast, and, you know, that they're very good and things like that. But there are a lot of drivers that jump in it too young, and you see them falling out of favour. You know, there are a lot of drivers that come in into Formula One too early, just because they've sort of done well in the sort of Formula 3, for instance. They jump straight into Formula One, they don't have a good first season, and then they end up without a drive and sort of have to look at different formulas. And just taking a little bit longer, making sure you sort of pace yourself sometimes can be a much better way of doing it than just trying to jump into the top series, because those top series experience does help, and, you know, it's racecraft, and you can, it's not easy to be fast, but it's not the hardest thing to be a fast driver. but it's very hard to be a consistently fast driver and have that racecraft.
Yeah, well, even in the simulator, I had to learn consistency first before speed, consistency, and then that's when the speed will come. Don't worry about the speed out of the box. And also another thing in real life is sponsors. They're a big thing that can push you, and just media, like we saw with the Indy driver, Danica Patrick in NASCAR. Yes. She went from driving an Indy car to driving NASCAR, and we'll say that she was average at best, to be polite. But there was also hidden ultimatums with men in behind that. It came out in later years, unfortunately.
Yes, it was a bit of an unfortunate situation. The old GoDaddy.com sponsorship really did help her out in the getting drives and things like that. But she didn't do too badly in Indy. She had the speed and obviously talented, things like that. But just being thrown into the sort of top series too soon, and it's a thing of, she may well have actually been able to have that speed if she'd gone through a little bit more of the lower formulas and sort of the Xfinity and the trucks and stuff like that, had a few more years to mature in that style of car and had a better experience, because again, it's that thing of maturing. It's easy to learn it's easier to learn to go fast if you can learn consistency. It's better sometimes to be relatively consistent and absolutely fast on pace as well, because you can sort of teach people to go a bit faster, but consistency, that can be a harder thing to learn.
Yeah, well, it's like Christopher Bell in the Xfinity series. He's doing as a young driver, but also consistently well, not just here and there well.
And that's the thing that makes the difference. And you've got the drivers, as we say, people like I was might say my greatest example, Dave Douglas. And look, I love putting Dave Douglas up because he is Mr. Consistency. You see him in the top 10 pretty much every race. He is just so consistently up there, and he gets a few wins. I think he won Daytona this year or last year, I think, one of the years. But he did get his win. He did get a win. He has got those wins under his belt, and he does get over the top 3 quite a lot. But he's very consistent. And then you've got Jason Martin and Matt Danson, who are consistent and fast. And Josh Mickelmore as well into that list, because those guys are just so consistent and so fast as well. It's very hard to sort of get past them. Danny G as well is sort of in that group of consistency. He's consistently sort of in that sort of top 10 battle and just keeps working with these guys and keeps in that area. But you see them just every season just pushing up a little bit more and a little bit more, and just gaining the skill and the advantage as they go.
Yeah, it's very important. Just self-confidence and seat time is the biggest thing too. Seat time will give you a lot of advantage, over a driver that doesn't have seat time.
Yes, and it's a big thing. Ryan Jones just sitting on the outside now. Maybe his car was just getting a little bit warm. He's just had to jump out and just start getting the side draft a little bit, and just sitting next to the number 20 of Darren McKenzie in the Scooby-Doo Zombie Island liveried car, and he's just going to start dropping back now because he's not getting that draft quite as much, but he is going to be starting to cool his car down a little bit. Maybe he was just struggling from temperature. We saw his teammate earlier on have that issue, and maybe that's starting to play into his mind, because these guys have been running relatively close for a long time, especially everyone down to Matthew Raymond in 6th place has been running pretty much nose to tail for the last 20 or so laps. So it's heat is going to start being a bit of an issue, I think, for a few guys. You're going to start seeing them duck out of the draft for a little bit, trying to get a bit of clean air on the car, a little bit of cool air on the nose, just to help them out.
As you're talking about that, the Scooby-Doo car peaked out a little bit, and I can see the purple car peeking out every so often. Even the slightest peak helps a bit sometimes.
Yes, it is just that tiny bit of extra air, and it just makes a huge difference. I mean, these cars have got a huge radiator on the front to cool them down. The engines are running at ridiculous temperatures. You're running around here at about 8,000 RPM constantly, sort of 300 kilometers per hour, and that puts a lot of stress on the engine and a lot of heat through the engine as well. And things like lubrication and all that comes into play, but the air is the most important thing. If you can get a bit of cool air into your car, that's going to help you out an enormous amount, because the hotter the engine gets, you do start to lose a little bit of power. You get mechanical issues and things like that. You want that engine to be running relatively cool if you can.
Yeah, and we're seeing a few of these cars start to catch up to this first 6 here behind them.
Yes, the sort of, what's the third pack, but I guess it's the second pack now of Edward Foster, Riley Curtis, Dave Douglas, Stephen Williams, Marco Dortnack. Stephen Williams is the last one in that one. Marco Dortnack's a bit further behind in his own little pack with Bradley Cheney, whose car is very damaged. But yeah, they're sort of catching up now. They're sort of all getting up to everybody else. They're closing up again.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a lot of movement from the Scooby-Doo and the purple car here at the moment, coming out every so often to grab that extra air. So they must be really starting to get warm under the hoods at the moment.
Yes, I sort of was thinking you might see a change of position at the front soon, possibly, as Josh Mickelmore will try and jump behind Jason Martin. But of course, that's easier said than done, because when you're trying to change these positions around, it's very tricky, because you can easily lose more than one position. You can drop back 5 or 6 positions if you're unlucky. You just got to sort of time it right and get it in the right place, because obviously I'm sure Josh Mickelmore would like to run behind Jason Martin for a little bit, just to help his fuel mileage a little bit more. We're 24 laps into this stint now for everybody, so they're going to start needing fuel relatively soon. So yeah, these front runners are probably going to be starting to look at some fuel very shortly, so in the next couple of laps expect them to come in.
Yeah, we're 11 laps over the halfway mark as we see a few of the top pack here come in.
Yeah, so we've got Mickelmore, Danson and Mackenzie coming in for their stops now, so I almost predicted that one. It almost sounds like I know what I'm doing sometimes. So hopefully all of these guys will make a nice stop, as Josh Mickelmore and Jason Martin both make mistakes as they enter the pits. They both overshot. Josh Mickelmore a little bit more than Martin, but both of them, Jason Martin, their pit stops and overshot a little bit. So just had to do the old little bit of a reverse to get back, and I think that's put them out behind Mackenzie. So Mackenzie's managed to jump both of those cars.
Yeah, so Mackenzie will be quite happy about that, but the other two drivers will be kicking themselves. But that's quite easy to do on that slippery.
Slowing these cars down is not easy. It's a hard thing to do, because these things are very, very they're hard to drive, and the front wheel bias as well on these things is pretty front brake bias, is pretty high on these cars as well. When you put your foot down, if you put your foot down too hard, the back end's just going to swing around on you like a pendulum.
When you're sitting there holding the throttle full belt for 29 laps, and then you jump on, what do you expect really? Hey?
Yeah, that's it. The brakes are not exactly warmed up as well. And that's the other thing as well with this style of racing, is you're going in on cold brakes. Obviously, you want your brakes to have a little bit of a heat cycle through them, but when you're coming into the pit stalls on this track, they are very cold. They've only got the wheel temperature just keeping them that little bit lukewarm. So unlike road tracks where you're keeping heat constantly through those brakes, on these style of tracks you're just pretty much losing heat as you're going around on those brakes. It does mean you're more prone to lockups and things like that.
Yeah, I was running some V8 supercars around Bathurst the other night with the team giving us Bathurst week, and you know, you go to jump into pits and you can go in very, very aggressively because the brakes are warmed up compared to going in these cars where you've got to be very careful.
Yes, it's almost like you sort of have to tap the brakes a couple of times and just gently ease it in on these ones. It's a bit like driving a car with sort of drum brakes, the older style of brakes where you sort of if you put your foot down too hard on the brakes, you just overcook them and they stop working. It's that sort of mentality with it. It's very hard to actually to get these to come to a complete stop, and everybody's just weaving around a bit at the front now, and it's just that sort of game of chicken to who's going to pit first out of these guys. So will we see everybody dash in as a giant sort of a giant snake, or will some people stay out and try and keep a couple of laps on their car if they've got a little bit more fuel?
I don't think there's much to claim in under or overcutting in this truck, unfortunately, besides the drive.
Yes, that's the thing. If you come in on your own, you can kind of you sort of come out on your own, and that can kind of ruin your race sometimes. So you sort of do want a few other cars around you to pit, so you at least got that bit of draft to sort of speed you up a bit. But generally things sort themselves out in these races, and sort of works its way in there. The sort of undercut situation is really non-existent. The time that people are setting is the fastest lap on that last lap was set by Michael Skurlock, who's been out there for 27 laps, and just much faster than Jason Martin sitting behind him, who has just come in for some new boots. So the tyres don't make a blind bit of difference here, but coming out without a couple of drivers to sort of aid you in a pack situation can hurt a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, and we've been lucky tonight with lap traffic that there hasn't been too much issue with anyone getting caught up behind or in an accident with lap traffic.
No, we've been pretty good so far with the lap traffic. Currently, really, the guys that are a lap down starts at Wayne Taylor with Middle Finger Racing guys. They got Wayne Taylor, Matty Flirt, Danny Stevens, and then finally Norman Clark right at the back, who is just trundling along. He's only 2 laps down, so doing a great job, Norman Clark, there to keep that car actually moving, because it's pretty much missing every bit of it that makes it a car.
Yeah, anything that pushes the air away from the nose and helps him out aerodynamic. Gone.
Yes, it's as aerodynamic as a brick at the moment, which you know most NASCARs are, but it's even worse aerodynamics than a regular stock car, so that's saying something.
Yeah, and talking of stock cars, there's been this week a car getting around that's been claimed to be the next Gen 7 car, but it's obviously in the leopard print car camo, so we don't know the body shape or too much about it yet, so it'll be interesting to see what details come out about that, because that could make or break NASCAR as the leader comes in here.
Ryan Jones pitting, so he's the first one to pit, and he's pretty much the only one to pit in that sort of top group of cars. So this could actually just hurt him a little bit in the pack position, at least when he comes back out on the track, depending on how much further these guys can go. If he gets caught up out there on his own, he could possibly drop a little bit of time here. But Matty Raymond's regained the lead. Fantastic drive so far for Matthew Raymond. He's really been putting in a great job tonight.
Yeah, he has been. And Danson is sitting second at the moment. Third, we got Edward Foster. So that's your top 3 at the moment.
As the Riley Curtis design cars come in for their pit stop, and Matthew Raymond's included in that one, as well as Danson. So the leaders have come in, and Stephen Williams as well is just stuck to that sort of group 2. So we've got a few cars coming in, and we'll see sort of how much advantage has been gained for these guys. So it's going to be interesting to see where they come out in regard to Martin, Micklemore and McKenzie, the first of the stoppers for that lead pack.
Matthew had to back up there for his pit stall. He missed it, unfortunately. so that will cost him.
It's so easy to do, sorry. And yeah, just cost him those few positions. Guy that really made up some good places there was Stephen Williams. He's really gained some spots there. Fantastic job for Williams. He's jumped all of the Riley Curtis design team cars, and there goes the train of Martin, Micklemore and Mackenzie. So Jason Martin and Josh Micklemore, as well as where are we? Jason Martin. Yeah, that little group of cars has managed to gain a bit of time over the leaders. They were the first to stop. So that little pack they had working has worked out quite well for them, and has got them out in front of the pack that just pitted. So obviously they're all going to start forming up now. People like Danson and
Foster are forming up here at the moment.
Yes, and we've got Ryan Jones as well. He's coming up. He managed to stay ahead of a couple of the cars that he was fighting with. But Edward Foster's been probably the biggest winner of that all. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Pick up there.
And if you're wondering why those cars getting cut up in front of the pack to try to gain a bit of an advantage there coming through 1 and 2, luckily iRacing has made it that you have to now go on the back straight like in real life and blend up into the traffic instead of just cutting up straight in front of them.
Yes, a feature that was sorely needed and has made exiting the pits a little bit less hazardous for the health. As we got a good battle going on between Foster, Jones and Danson. Foster is just dropping out of that pack just to fall back to his teammate Riley Curtis and Dave Douglas and Matty Raymond. So those guys are forming up a 4-car pack now. 5-car pack actually, because they've got Stephen Williams in there as well. So I imagine they'd prefer not to have Stephen Williams in the pack. They want it to be their own little gang, but it will work well for them because the pack that's formed out front with Martin, Micklemore and Mackenzie has really paid off despite their little bit of trouble in the pits. Martin and Micklemore have both jumped Mackenzie and really pulled out a decent gap over the other guys that just pitted.
Yeah, now the difference between real life here and to catch each other is, unlike in real life, the pit crew can't just get on the radio and say to a random driver, would you like to bump draft with our driver like they can in real life. Unfortunately, at this stage, that's not a feature in iRacing.
Yes, it's because some of these drivers use their own little Discord channels and things like that, but it's very hard to switch between that kind of thing when you're racing. It's like not the easiest thing to do. But a few of these guys sort of know each other. We saw Matt Danson just dropping down out of the lead of the pack with himself and Jones. Danson just dropped out onto the just under the yellow line on the back straight, just so he could get behind Jones. So he's going to be thinking about fuel saving now because we're on lap 74 now of 100. So people are going to start thinking about the last section of the race now. They're trying to work their way back from the end of the race and see if they can maybe stay out there to the end, or try and make their fuel work, or see if they need to make a little splash and dash. This is where it's going to really decide the race victory.
Yeah, they should be able to do it on fuel from here. No trouble really, unless something happens and they have to go green, white, checkered. That may be an issue then, but by that time they will have a chance to pit under safety car, and the safety car could save them with the fuel.
Yes, well, I mean, we've been seeing people do about 28, 29 lap stints at the moment. We're on lap 75 of 100. So
there's about 26 laps. Yeah. I just sat here and did the maths.
Yeah, the math part in the head is always the hardest bit. But Jason Martin, Josh Micklemore and Darren McKenzie have to stop again. They're not going to be able to make it to the end because they're currently on their 13th lap of this stint. So there is unless they can basically start manufacturing fuel inside of their car somehow, they're not going to make it to the end. So they're going to need to make a splash and dash, and they're going to be hoping for a caution. They're really going to be hoping for a caution to come out, because that's going to be the only way they're going to have a chance of making it. Whereas the guys like Matty Raymond, who's now in the lead of that pack of the second pack from fourth down, they can just possibly make it, but they're going to need to really race to the fuel mileage now, because they've got to basically go, I think, 32 laps, and that would be the longest we've seen anyone stint tonight. We've not seen anyone go past 30, so at this moment, I don't think we're that clear. I don't think anyone's safe to make it to the end of the race on fuel, unless they really start just leaning out the engine and just lifting and coasting and just saving the fuel as much as possible, which they could be doing in this second pack. Whereas Jason Martin, Micklemore and Mackenzie are just going to have to put their foot to the floor and try and gain time, so they can actually make that splash and dash and possibly come out and get back at the other guys.
Yeah, that may be a bit of a splash and a dash at the end, but I think Danson should be all right, and the guys that come with him, if they sit in the draft, hopefully the draft will help them out enough to be able to make it home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, in all honesty.
Yeah, either way, it will be close. It'll be...
Yeah, it's going to be one of those races where we might see a few bits of heartbreak happening at the line. We might see somebody getting to the line as the car just splutters and coughs and just slowly rolls across the line with no power on it. But as we stand currently for the chase, we have Norman Clark still right at the back, unfortunately, 3 laps down now. With all of that damage, he's really just out there hoping that a couple of other people go out. Really, that's his only chance. But he's still going for it, which, you know, it's commendable. There's no point in giving up. But currently, Michael Skurlock is the next guy in trouble. Skurlock's going to be in trouble, but just in front of him is his teammate Chris Purnell. So you've got Chris Purnell, Skurlock, sitting there in 15th and 16th, and currently those are the last 2 guys racing for a place in the chase. So one of those 2 guys, as it stands, could go out of this, could be knocked out. So currently Michael Skurlock would be the guy to be knocked out, while Chris Purnell would make it in. But in that sort of in their current positions, it's very close between those guys. So it's going to be a close finish for getting through on that one. There are a few big names at the back, as Jason Martin, Josh Micklemore and Darren McKenzie do come in.
Yeah, and Purnell would be very, very disappointed in himself at the moment, given that he was running with Danson early in this race, but coming into pit road incident, he cost himself all that time and is now way down in there and fighting for a spot in the chase.
Yeah, that one mistake has cost him so much. So all of those 3 cars have come in for their pit stops now. So Matty Raymond takes the lead once more. And that's dropped Martin, Micklemore and Mackenzie down the order. But they're going to have fuel to the end of the race now. They've got nothing to worry about. They're going to make it without any problem. Whereas the rest of this field, I do feel they're going to have to lift and coast and not have to. They're going to race to. They're racing to fuel mileage, not to speed, I would say.
Yeah, this is where you race the numbers and not to each other, really.
Yeah, these guys are sort of earlier on in the race. They were lapping around about the 50-second mark. They're now lapping at 51 seconds, and that's quite slow compared to that ultimate pace. A few other people out there are a couple of seconds faster than these guys in this main pack, because I reckon they are just really trying to get there on fuel. And I do wonder if we'll see some of these guys just come in just for a quick splash and dash, just for a safety check, just as a precaution, just in case.
Yeah, notice how everyone's very happy just to sit in one line at the moment instead of trying to race each other. That's also saving fuel there.
Everybody but Matthew Raymond's happy, I think, about that one. I imagine he's going to be the guy that's not too pleased with his place in the field. But his work is helping his teammates out, because just behind him we've got Dave Douglas. We've got Edward Foster and Riley Curtis a little bit further down the snake. So the Riley Curtis design team are really helping out their drivers. You've got Stephen Williams as well, and Matthew Cluett, just right at the end of the pack, Matthew Cluett. But those guys are sort of going to be pretty happy about this, because it's going to be helping out quite a lot. But Matty Raymond's going to be the sacrificial lamb, so to say.
Yeah, which is always unfortunate for that certain driver, but you got to be that driver sometimes.
Yes, and as we go down the pack a bit, just racing for the for the chase as it goes, we've got Jason Martin, Chris Purnell, Chris Purnell, Michael Skurlock, Josh Micklemore, all fighting in that sort of position now. They're all side by side, and Jason Martin's currently leading the group of the Mitch Motorsport cars and Darren McKenzie on the top line, whereas Michael Skurlock's just sitting on that lower line at the moment with Chris Purnell, and they're going to be relatively happy about this position. But again, I do wonder if Chris Purnell and Skurlock are going to be able to make it on fuel. They've currently done 16 laps on this stint, whereas the leaders have only done 13 laps. So it's going to be very tricky for some of these guys to finish. So it might be a bit of an interesting race at the back as well.
Yeah, I think there may be some heartbreak in some places, like you said. I think the ones at the back that have done the 16 laps, unfortunately, we had to come in for a splash and dash, but who knows, we could have a safety car yet and they could all be saved.
It could be, and Matthew Cluett and Wayne Taylor have come in as well, so they've had to get a little bit more fuel. So the MFR guys have come in, and Wayne Taylor did make a bit of a mistake coming into pit lane on that one. But I think, as you say, people like, at the moment as it stands, I think Jason Martin is in the best position if we get a safety car. Jason Martin is going to be the guy that's going to probably gain the most if the other drivers come in for a quick splash of fuel. Of course, with the safety car as well, that would give everybody a chance to lean the engine out, switch it off as they're going down the back straight, and save that little bit of extra fuel and maybe stay out there. But it would bunch them all up again, so the race is not over.
No, as we hit 85 laps here at Talladega.
So, just listening to Matty Raymond's car, it's sort of he's pushing it a bit, but it's not quite as much as some of the other cars. He's not flat out. He's sort of easing it through the corners and just letting it roll a little bit on the corners as he goes through, going along there. So he's not pushing too hard at the moment. Just looking at some of the other cars around there, he's just keeping the rev range just around about that sort of 8,000 RPM, just a little bit lower than everybody else. If we look at people like Micklemore and Martin, they're sitting around about 8,100, 8,200 sort of rev range. So they are trying to fuel save at the front, so I think they're going to try their best, as Chris Purnell does come in for a pit stop. So the Illusion boys of Chris Purnell and Michael Skurlock have come in for a pit stop.
And that's the thing, do you come in sooner rather than later, or do you hold out until as long as you possibly can if you do need that extra splash and dash?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you're going to look like a hero or an idiot. You know, sometimes it can work out very well, and sometimes it just doesn't. And at this point, I would probably come in a little bit sooner rather than later, and just hope that the guys in front of me start having trouble. Because the later you leave it, the worse it's going to be, because you're going to be running at a pace slower than some of the other guys in the field. You know, sort of the average pace behind them, say Jason Martin, people like that are running 49.8, 49.7, while the guys in the lead are running about a 50.2, 50.3. So you're losing a couple of tenths a second a lap. And, you know, it is letting those guys catch up to you. The longer you leave it, the smaller that gap's going to be. And then when you come out, the further back you're going to be. So it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is.
And
it always depends on the numbers. As a driver, I try as long as I can, but that's just my mentality if I'm able to. But again, running to numbers, you got to run to those numbers. If I am slightly short, I will come in sooner rather than later. Go ahead. Sorry,
Johnny. Just noticed actually, Purnell and Skurlock are coming again for another stop. Both Purnell and Skurlock have both had to come in again for another stop. So, not 100% sure on that one. Did they possibly ping the speed line or something like that when they came in on their first stop? Did both of them speed a little bit on the exit lap? Because that's put them way down the order now. So yeah, they'd only just made a pit stop.
Yeah, it's more than likely something coming out, because if you're coming into the pit, just held during the pit stop. So they're either unsafe release, speeding coming out of pit lane more so than coming in. So that's unfortunate for them, or maybe something happened during the actual pit stop itself.
Yeah, that is a disaster vote for those two, and it means that the teammates now are basically racing each other for that last place in the chase. And currently it's going to be Purnell who gets who's going to be the one that gets knocked out. So disaster for Chris Purnell. Absolute disaster for him.
As we tend to go here, so if they're going to start pitting, they probably pit soon, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I honestly think these guys are going to try and make it to the end on the actual fuel that they've got. You can just, if you're just watching these cars, you can just see how slow they're going, and they're really not pushing the car. They're just gently tapping the throttle and not pushing it very hard at all. If we jump on board to Matty Raymond, you should be able to just see just what I mean there. Just the car, it's just, he's not pushing it to its absolute limit. He's just easing off a bit, letting it roll a little bit through the corners. The rev gauge is just keeping down. He really is trying to eke every last bit of fuel out of that car.
Yeah, and that's the difference between, again, road and oval. To save on an oval car, where a road, you can, let off a bit extra coming into the, and not come onto the accelerator as soon coming out of a corner, where it's a lot harder to do that. In a oval car, you're just sitting there touching the throttle a little bit less and less input on the throttle, like not 100% all the time.
Yeah, it's just that gentle touch, just it's millimeters of the throttle pedal, isn't it? There's not much in it at all, but it can be the difference between making it to the end of the race on fuel and running out of fuel on that last lap. So the race is not over by any means, because we've got people. Jason Martin currently is catching this group about half a second a lap at the moment, and they're only 22 seconds behind. So they're starting to close up. Will they be able to do it before the end of the race? I don't think so, but of course these guys are just going to be trying to get that fuel to the end. If they do start spluttering too early, it could be good news for people like Martin and Whipplemore and get them a few extra positions.
Yeah, it's not so much of a risk here for Danson, as we said earlier in the broadcast. He has his ticket straight through to Homestead, so he can take a risk like this where some of the other drivers can't or do.
No, it's there is a little bit less risk now, of course, because you've got poor Chris Purnell at Skurlock and Norman Clark 2 laps down, 2 laps down, and 4 laps down. So you know you can play around a little bit. I got the feeling Matty Raymond's just been left out here as the sort of, as I say, the sacrificial lamb a little bit, just to punch that hole through the air for the guys behind him, because you've got Dave Douglas, you've got Riley Curtis, you've got Edward Foster, all of his teammates in that first train, all working to get to the next race in the chase, of course. And as it stands, they will be doing that. They'll be getting there for sure. So it's just going to depend who can. It's just going to depend on those last couple of laps. If there's no mistakes, and as long as everybody races clean and there's no accidents, then it's going to look good for them to get into Kansas.
Yeah, and that's a good thing for them, because they have been out there working hard together as a...
Yeah, teamwork for them has been a great thing, and that's the thing, as we were saying at the start of the race, the super teams, the teams that have a lot of cars in their groups, it can really pay off for them. It's sort of paying off for Mitch Motorsport at the moment, as we say, as those guys are just climbing their way back through the field. They are just zooming past people at the moment, and much faster at the moment. But the Riley Curtis design team, because they've got 4 cars, it's just giving them that little bit more to work with, so they can play that team game and can help each other out. Unfortunately, Illusion it's all gone wrong for them. It's not worked in their favour, as well as Middle Finger Racing. You could say the same for MFR, although Matthew Cluett and Wayne Taylor have been working very well together too. So Cluett and Wayne Taylor have been sort of keeping each other sort of in at least in the mid pack, so keeping them in the race and keeping them in the chase positions. So at least they're in there. But of course, Matty Raymond, he's got nothing to lose now. He's not in the chase, so using him as that sort of the car to break the air and force his way through the air and make that sort of clean air for the pack sort of makes sense, really.
Yeah, we got 3 to go this time across the line, so hopefully everyone has got their fuel numbers right here.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very close, and it's I think the guy that's going to be the closest on field is going to be Ryan Jones, because he pitted a lap earlier than everybody else, if you remember. So he's got 1 lap less of fuel on board than everybody else, but he has been sitting sort of 3rd in line in that pack for a while. As I just saw a car just on the infield. Mirko Dortnack, looks like Mirko Dortnack might have some problems. Just some late news. Oh, big issue for Mirko Dortnack. Just going back here, sorry. Last lap round, he's gone into the wall. He's just coming out of pit lane, in fact. Just coming out of the pits. He's come out of the pits and lost it on the pit exit, and gone into the wall pretty heavily on the left front. So that is a real big issue for him. But we've got the race for the win going, and this is where everybody's going to start making their move as they start going too wide. Matt Danson's looking for that win. He's got in front of Riley Curtis there. Riley Curtis just behind him. Riley Curtis is going to start giving him the push, and Matt Danson's got that little bit of extra fuel, so he's just going to get that push, get into the lead now. Matt Danson has taken that lead, and they're really going to try and push. So this is where that fuel mileage is paying off now. Is Matty Raymond going to have enough fuel to get there? He's got back in front of Matt Danson. This is going to be a very close finish as Raymond pulls down to allow Dave Douglas through. So Matt Raymond running out of fuel by the looks of it. So this is now Dave Douglas and Matt Danson racing for the win. Who can possibly win this one? It's going to be so close right now. Looks like Matt Danson has a good position though. He's just cut down in front of Dave Douglas. On the outside, you've got 2 Illusion cars with Riley Curtis sitting out there. And Riley Curtis has just lost the two illusion cars. He's just trying to slip back into the line, but he's just missing out. And Dave Douglas might make a pounce here. He's going to try and make a move. Down the inside he goes. Dave Douglas making the move on Danson. This is very, very close by. And he's getting pushed by Ryan Jones. So Dave Douglas has just got through. Great job for Dave Douglas. Ryan Jones helping him out enormously there. As we come down, and the white flag's going to come out as we come onto our last lap. But is everybody going to make it on fuel? As Ryan Jones has just got in front of Danson now, and this is going to sort of not help Danson too much. Danson going right to the outside. He's right on top. He's got the illusion car behind him. Dave Douglas has got the three Riley Curtis design team cars working in unison to push him forwards. Ryan Jones is pushing Matt Danson forward as well. So this is going to be a very close finish.
Might be on for a photo finish here.
It looks like it. Danson is very close here as we come through. We're coming up to the finish line very shortly. We're on the tri-oval, but it looks like Dave Douglas might have it here. Dave Douglas is down on the inside, and so close. Is it going to be? Danson goes round, a huge incident on the end, but Dave Douglas has taken the victory. Edward Foster second, Riley Curtis third. Huge incident for Matt Danson there. He just lost it going into just across the start-finish line. We'll see if we can see what happened there in a moment. Danson pushing forwards, and it looks like Danson's just gone. He's just lost it slightly. Gone up into one of the illusion cars. Gone around. Huge crash across the finish line. But Dave Douglas is the winner of the Talladega race here for ANZCAR. Whew, that was a very close finish.
That was some really good and exciting racing there at the end.
It was, and unfortunately for the actual race for the chase, we have to say goodbye to Chris Purnell and Norman Clark. Norman Clark actually managed to get ahead of Purnell after an incident for Purnell. So unfortunate for Norman Clark as well. Michael Skurlock scrapes through by the skin of his teeth. And Mirko Dortnack as well. He was very lucky there to get through. But yeah, the winner of that race is Dave Douglas. What an absolute fantastic finish there.
Yeah, we're out of fuel, so there'll be no burnout here, unfortunately, for the winner.
I think they're going to have to ask maybe Jason Martin to come and give them a bit of a push to get them to the finish line. And it looks like that's what Jason Martin's going to do. Just giving them a little bit of a nudge just to help them get to that, get to the start-finish line, just to help out there. Fantastic camaraderie there. Thank you very much, Jason, for the little bit of nudge. Wow. Yeah, and Riley Curtis Design, a 1-2-3, another victory on one of these super speedways for the Riley Curtis Design team. I know last year in the Thunder Series, as it was back then, they managed a couple of victories on these super speedways. They do tend to work very well here, and it's usually Dave Douglas that manages to pull it off. So absolute brilliant win for Dave Douglas. Edward Foster second, Riley Curtis third. Stephen Williams managed to sneak out into fourth place at the end of that race. Matt Danson dropped down to fifth. Sixth was Ryan Jones. Jason Martin finished seventh. Eighth was Josh Micklemore. Ninth, Darren McKenzie. 10th was Matthew Raymond, who is doing a little bit of a burnout for his teammates. Had to come in just for a little bit of extra fuel at the end there. But great job for Raymond. He absolutely saved his teammates there. He was the sacrificial lamb, but he was really the star for the Riley Curtis Design team. Helped him out enormously to get that race victory. Matthew Cluett 11th, Wayne Taylor 12th, Mirko Dortnack 13th, Daniel Stevens 14th, Bradley Cheney 15th, 16th is Michael Skurlock, 17th Norman Clark, 18th is Chris Purnell, 19th Roger Clark unfortunately went out pretty early on, Andrew Monkridge of course, who had the engine issue, and Robert Mason as well, out early in this race. Whew. That was a heck of a finish, Shano.
Yeah, I was nearly right with my pick for Edward Foster earlier in the night, but he got second, but a really great drive from that team there. There's no I in team. That goes to show that there's no I in team at the end of the day, is there?
No, that was a fantastic victory by that Riley Curtis design team there, just absolutely snatching that one. What I might do is actually just have a look up there. We'll actually grab straight into the room the winner of the race, Mr. Dave Douglas.
Ryan Jones.
Dave Douglas, Carl Withy here, Performance East Streaming, just cutting you off mid-sentence. Sorry about that, but congratulations on a victory.
Yoo! What's going on, boys? I'm pumped.
Another victory on another super speedway, Dave.
My bread and
great
butter.
job by you. Well, one thing I've got to ask there is, I'd imagine you're going to be pretty happy with Matty Raymond tonight. He obviously helped the team out quite a bit for that last stage of that race.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, mate. Matt Raymond, that win is all him. He got us there. We asked him to be the basically the scapegoat, be the sacrifice, and lead, because we knew we were not going to make it if we had to lead that race. And we pushed him up to the front there, and I saw the opportunity, so I took it, because thought I'm going to be low on ball on fuel, so I thought I'd dunk in behind him and just see what I can do with it. But yeah, that's 100% Matt Raymond, so big shout out to him. But yeah, it was an awesome race. It was a tough race because it's not easy going at 85% throttle the whole way.
Yeah, I was just going to ask there on the fuel saving, like how close was it on fuel for you guys getting across that line?
Honestly, I know I've got a dash that tells me when like the fuel numbers exactly. I was over my fuel number, but I've got a 3-litre buffer, and as a backup, I was into that 3-litre buffer. And honestly, once I saw Danson go, I just put it down. I didn't care. I just went for it, and I don't know what I ended up with, but I ran out on the cool down lap, and turn 2, I think it was.
Yeah, we saw Jason Martin just helping you out, and Ed Foster out, just coming back to the start-finish line, giving you a little bit of a push to help you there when you were out of fuel. Yeah, it was just a fantastic job tonight, and I imagine the team are going to be pretty happy with that for a 1-2-3, and of course 1-2-3 as well into the next stage of the chase.
Yeah, man, it was great. Good little race there with Danson. Going down the back straight, he sort of went high as I was going to go around the outside of him. He came up. I was able to sneak back down the inside. I'm not sure what happened on the last lap there on the outside. I know he went up in a fence. So it's unfortunately for those guys that got wrecked out. But yeah, pretty pumped to bring home a 1-2-3 for RCD. First race of the chase, boys.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty good habit of yours for getting victories on these super speedways as well. You seem to go well on them. You seem to have some luck.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always loved restrictor plate racing, so I rate myself at it. And then I usually sort of take over the team. Like, I'm throwing orders here, left, right, and centre. The boys will probably tell you. But yeah, it works. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, fantastic job, Dave. Great to see you up here in the booth again. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to tonight?
Once again, massive shout out for Matty Raymond. As I said, he got that victories as much as mine as it is his. Shout out to the boys, RCD 1-2-3. We stuck in there, we hung out, and we made it. And just shout out to E53 and you guys putting on the for the stream tonight.
Thanks so much, Dave. Hopefully we'll see you again in the booth in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you bet.
Dave Douglas there, winner of the race for RCD Riley Curtis Design Sim Sport Racing. A fantastic job for him. Yeah, just a fantastic team job there. That just shows team effort there for those guys. Anyone you would like to drag down, Jono?
Let's have a talk to the man who came second, Mr. Foster.
I will drag him down for you.
Hello, Edward, how you going?
Very well after that, very well, very relieved, I must say.
You must be very pumped with the 1-2-3 and the second for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Went into tonight I'll be honest, I've been stressing out about this race for 2 weeks. Knowing that coming to Talladega, knowing that it's such a lottery as it is, and just thinking all of the things that could possibly go wrong. Of course, we got chase implications with what happens tonight as well. So really was just trying to drive as safe as possible, and it all just kind of fell our way in the end. We were talking fuel numbers the whole way, and it was very much I can't imagine that it was too exciting for you guys to watch, because it was very much a fuel saving race for us. Nobody wanted to be in the lead of that pack, and Danson was playing a few games trying to get behind me, and then I tried to get behind him. And in the end, we got on the phone to Matty Raymond, who, given the fact he's not in the chase, agreed to run at the front, agreed to lead, and really sacrifice his own race for the good of us. So, we got a 1, 2, 3, but really this result is every bit as much down to his contribution as it is to anyone else, probably more so.
Yeah, I actually picked you as my winner before the start of the race, so you nearly got. But it was very much a fuel numbers race, wasn't it? And yeah, it definitely pushed our commentating skills on what we could pick up and talk about throughout the race. So.
Yeah, I knew it was going to. I was actually thinking about you guys at one point during that fuel saving phase in that second stint, but it's there's actually a little bit of a record that went tonight, and that is one that I really wanted for myself, and that is I won the last race for the Fusion in ANZCAR, the Ford Fusion, before you switched over to the Mustang, and I really wanted to get the Mustang's first win as well, and Dave's just picked me to the Mustang first win, so we can say the team got it, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do that double.
Well, it goes to show there's no I in team, right, at the end of the day?
No, I mean, priority one was getting through to the next round of the chase today. That's really, everything else was secondary. So when we saw that obviously Danny G wasn't here, and then Norman had his problem at the start, that only left us with one chase car that we had to place ahead of. And then we saw that Purnell was having issues, and I think Mirko had a couple of issues as well. And then when we saw that, we're like, okay, we can get it stuck in and play ball now. And really, we were touch and go. I think we started the final lap with about 1.6 laps of fuel left. So it was very, very close. I really didn't do any racing at all in the whole race until the last lap. Drove around for 99 laps and then came home strongly in the last lap. But when Danson went up to the top and tried to get a bit of a push from, I don't even know who it was, and I was able to slide in underneath Jones and give Dave a push, I'm thinking, right, we've been here before, and there's no way we're going to lose it from here. So I was absolutely determined not to let Dave down. There was no opportunity for me to win because all the other avenues were blocked. So he was the next best thing, and obviously to come away from the 1, 2, 3 is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you definitely gave us a very exciting last lap there. And do you have a implement like a dash or something that tells you your fuel numbers, or were you just talking to the team during the race?
Dave usually looks after all of that. So, I've obviously got my iRacing readout, which is known for its reliability. We're talking the whole way through. And we even had a bit of discussion going on between us and Matt, of course, Matty as well, running up the front. So he was sort of telling us what his numbers were, knowing that he'd be using a bit more. It was a team event, team effort across the whole race.
Yeah. Any questions you'd like to ask Carl?
Look, it's all been answered for me, but anyone you'd like to give a shout out for, Mr. E53 Ed Foster?
It's been a while since I've been up here, isn't it? So, Riley, for putting me in this team to begin with. It's obviously not continuing after the end of the year, but it's been one hell of a ride. And Dave, he's been an excellent teammate all this time. I hope we finish out the season strongly with those two guys. And once again, to Matty Raymond, he really did sacrifice his race tonight to give us the opportunity at the victory. So big thanks to him as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ed Foster. So Ed Foster there. Now, going to grab down Matty Raymond as well, just for a quick chat, because, well, pretty much he was the guy that made that all come together for that team. Matty Raymond, Carl with you here, Performance E Streaming. How are you going?
Yeah, good, Carl. How about you, mate?
Very good, very good. Well, congratulations on a fantastic race. Obviously, not the end position you probably would have wanted, but what a fantastic job you did for the team.
Oh, well, yeah, we sort of did want me to get that position, if it makes sense. I just sort of jumped in front of the other boys and so they could try and save juice, and Yeah, I ran out with, I don't know, a lap or two to go. So unfortunate, but team did all right.
We saw you dance into the pits with a lap or two to go, but you've been strong all night, actually. You're one of the fastest cars out there tonight. You looked like you had it pretty capable vehicle out there.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the only people here that love restrictor plate racing. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like a game of chess at 200 mile an hour. You know, it's a lot of fun, I think.
Well, yourself and Dave Douglas. Dave Douglas does tend to like these because he tends to get those victories here. And as Edward Foster and Dave Douglas did say for you, you did the job for them tonight. Obviously, you put yourself into that position as well. It's been a really good season for you so far. You've been sort of getting on there, getting through there and progressing. And now you're an RCD. Do you feel you're going to be progressing a bit further? Do you feel a bit more comfortable in the season, things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, just tonight sort of proved it. Running restrictor plates on my own, you haven't really got many people to work with. But when you can hook up 3-4 cars, you can really make some good moves. So, yeah, I mean, we got to win at Daytona in the Xfinity this year too. So, I mean, I think we just do pretty well on the restrictor plates because of that aspect.
Yeah, well, it was a fantastic effort from you, and yeah, you did leading those laps and doing a fantastic job. So, congratulations on a great race. You did manage to get it in the top 10 as well. So you managed to get all 4 cars in the top 10 in the end as well. So that's a fantastic job from you.
Yeah, it's not a bad result, eh? Yeah, so I'm pretty happy for the team, and especially we were happy for Dave and the boys for 3 out of 3 positions, and isn't bad.
I can imagine. Anyone you'd like to give a quick shout out to tonight, Matt?
Yeah, just the usual couple of blokes that helped me out. Of course, the RCD boys, Riley, Dave, Edward, even Matty Hunter there when he comes and races with us. And of course, Scott McClay down at McClay Mechanical, Black Forest, and a bloke by the name of Andrew Trelaw at Tackle World, Adelaide Metro down Port Road there. Without them two, I wouldn't be here. So special thanks to those boys.
Wonderful. Nice to see you up here. I hope to see you again at some stage in the future.
Yeah, same, mate. Cheers.
Matty Raymond there, the instrument in getting that 1, 2, 3 for the team there. That was one heck of a race, Johnny.
Yeah, it was definitely towards the end there on that last lap. There was so much going. Hard to keep up with.
Yeah, it was a bit of a sort of action-packed finish there. Just crossing the line with Danson just losing it. Just looked like he lost a little bit of front grip and just went up into one of the illusion cars. There's actually just looking at one of the chats. It looks like Riley Curtis crossed the line on 2 wheels. So fantastic job for him managing to cross the line on 2 wheels. So pretty epic finish for him there, and I imagine he's going to be pretty happy with that as well. Just before we go, I'm just going to grab Riley in just for one quick little chat, and then we'll finish up the show. Riley Curtis, Carl Withy here, Performance E Streaming. How are you going?
Yeah, good, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, good. Just talking there about your 2-wheel stunt across the finish line.
Yeah, it was a bit of a wild finish. Those boys taking themselves out, getting me. Made it 1, 2, 3 though, so.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk about. It's a fantastic job for the team. You managed to 1, 2, 3, and you also got all 4 cars in the top 10 as well. So, all in all, a pretty decent result, and also gets you through to the chase as well.
Yeah, that's what we were mainly worried about, making it to that next stage. But when we noticed there was no one at the front of our pack, Matty Raymond was nice enough to sacrifice himself to save fuel for the rest of us and give us that chance.
Now, with yourself, just on those fuel numbers, how bad was your fuel situation compared to the rest? Did you have a little bit extra, or were you pretty much running on fumes as well?
I think mine wasn't too bad. I had about 1.5 laps left at the line, so I know other people ran out on the last lap or on the cool down.
It was pretty touchy there for a couple of people.
Yeah, it was certainly touch and go. I think in that last stint, when we seen a couple of the other cars go down pit lane, we knew that we were sort of in the pack that was going to have the winner in it. So it was a race to the last 5 laps and then see who gets home.
Well, it went well for you guys. So just quickly, anyone you'd like to give a shout out for tonight, Riley?
I'll give Matty Raymond the shout out. He sacrificed himself for the three of us that were in the chase and was the one who went at the front and led, so we could also fuel. So he's the only one.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Riley. Hopefully we'll see you again in the booth over the chase. At least you're in with a chance next time at Kansas. So it's looking pretty good for you guys. You've got 3 cars in contention still. Yeah, it looks like you guys could be in for a good chance for the rest of the chase period.
Hopefully, yeah. Having all 3 go through is pretty good. Like we've got our special chase liveries on at the moment, so they'll drop off if any of us drop out, and because we're wrapping the team up at the end of the year as well, so it's a good way to try and send us out a win.
Well, it will be great if we can finish you guys up on the winning podium, on the top of the podium. Sorry, and yeah, the liveries look fantastic. Thank you so much, Riley, and we'll see you again.
Nice, cheers for broadcast, boys.
Thanks. So, yeah, that's it really. So, at the moment, as it stands, of course, the finishing there. Obviously, Danny G is out of the chase. We've lost him. We've lost Norman Clark, so unfortunately, due to that. Norman Clark due to the crash at the start of the race. An unfortunate thing for him. He was a bit of a passenger in that one. Not anything he could do there. And then Chris Purnell as well is the other guy I think that we've lost from the chase as well. So yeah, so 3 people out. So next time out for Kansas, we'll be going in, and we'll be losing another 3 from the chase. But Jono, any last words for the race?
It was a very interesting race, and unfortunately, Chris Purnell, he had his incident that ended up costing him his position in the chase. So that was unfortunate for him. He was just floating around here a minute ago, but unfortunately he's gone. So it was interesting having a chat to him about that, but we won't get that chance now. But that was an unfortunate incident for him, and a great finish for the guys and Foster and Dave and everyone at Riley Designs there. So hopefully, we continue to see some good results out of those guys and they can make it through to the final round of the chase.
Yeah, well, it'll be good to see some challenge going towards Jason Martin, Josh Middlemore, and Matt Danson, of course. And there are still a few drivers in it. So, from me, myself, Carl Withy, from Jono, John Hancock, and from Matt Hunter on cams. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time out for the Kansas round of the E53 ANZCAR Cup.